Under a jaundiced glow on a deserted Bakersfield highway, a solitary gas station trembles with the hum of aging fluorescence. In its shadowed interior, a tired cashier idly scrolls on his phone, scarcely glancing up as a dignified man steps inside. General Obadiah Kane, whose life has been an unyielding defense of his country, places a modest bottle of water and a pack of gum on the counter, a simple, unremarkable transaction. With a measured swipe of his card and a brief nod of acknowledgement, he slips back into the cool embrace of the night. Outside, the gentle chorus of crickets melds with the soft whoosh of a passing car, underscoring the weariness of a long journey carried with quiet resolve. Yet, unbeknownst to Kane, fate was already shifting the narrative into a tableau of stark injustice. A sudden beam of piercing headlights skitters across the cracked pavement as a police cruiser barrels in, its tires grinding over scattered gravel like brittle promises shattering under pressure. Inside, Officer Brent Calloway sits rigidly, his eyes clouded by assumptions that obscure the truth. To him, the storied past of a man who once led battalions into battle and held council in war rooms is invisible, a mere shadow behind a black man in everyday clothes, driving a car that seems too polished for such a late hour. Fueled by reports of dubious activity in these forgotten corners, his pulse quickens as he steps from his cruiser, fingers curling tightly around his service weapon. In his mind, this is the moment, a defining instance he imagines recounting at the precinct, when raw instinct trumps reason. Obadiah Kane, meanwhile, is absorbed in the small ritual of unscrewing the cap from his water bottle, nonchalantly flicking a piece of gum onto the passenger seat of his SUV. The night remains undisturbed until a voice, sharp and lacerating as a whip crack, cuts through the silence. "Freeze! Show your hands now!" In that split second, Kane's head tilts, registering the cold glint of metal and the unwavering barrel of a gun aimed squarely at his chest. His body, honed by decades of survival in hostile terrains, surges with reflexes born from countless high-stakes encounters. Yet, he remains immobile, a deliberate stand that echoes the discipline of battlefields far removed from suburban streets, because this confrontation is not fought with insurgents, but with prejudice under a familiar sky. Calloway's hands tremble imperceptibly as his rigid posture belies an inner turmoil, his grip on the firearm almost desperate in its determination. His breath comes in short, frantic bursts, each one a testament to the adrenaline that has already overtaken him. With deliberate calm, Kane raises his hands to chest level, palms open in a gesture that conveys both surrender and steadfast dignity, a signal reminiscent of a veteran advising a fledgling soldier. "Officer, what seems to be the problem?" he asks evenly, his tone measured and clear, as if speaking to a young recruit teetering on the brink of error. But Calloway's vision remains skewed. He sees not a decorated general but a threat, a solitary figure whose very presence, in his biased eyes, confirms his suspicions. The fragile moment hangs heavy, where one misstep might ignite a cascade of irreversible violence. No sooner has this tension crystallized than the parking lot is flooded by a surge of red and blue lights. A second cruiser roars onto the scene, its arrival punctuating the unfolding drama. From within, a new voice shatters the charged air. "Hold up, stop!" In that breathless moment, the dynamics shift. Kane, ever composed, continues to stand his ground, his breathing steady, his stance unmoved, as he has done countless times when the world demanded split-second decisions in life-or-death circumstances. He knows too well the tragic fallout of rash actions by uniformed men, actions that have cost lives. Tonight, there are no concealed snipers in the trees, no hidden air support poised to intervene, only a lonely gas station lot, a young officer with a gun, and a crisis spiraling dangerously close to catastrophe. In the fervor of youthful ambition, Calloway's focus narrows to a single, distorted narrative. A black man alone at night in an upscale vehicle is, in his mind, enough evidence of wrongdoing. He cannot see the legacy of a man who, from the sweltering backroads of Louisiana, learned early that prejudice is a weight to be defied. His father, a humble mechanic, once warned him, "They'll always judge you first, give them nothing to hold on to." Obadiah Kane took that lesson to heart, surmounting obstacles at West Point and proving himself on battlefields where every decision was a matter of life and death. Yet tonight, his storied service and the respect it commands fade into irrelevance before the narrow lens of Calloway's suspicion. With the calm of a seasoned veteran, Kane announces, "Officer, I'm reaching for my wallet." Each deliberate movement, measured to exude confidence and control, is a testament to his unflappable nature. But Calloway, gripped by an escalating paranoia, barks out, "Don't move, Obadiah, freeze!" Kane's hands remain raised, palms spread wide in an appeal for transparency. The standoff is frozen in time, a heart-stopping pause where every fraction of a second carries the weight of a lifetime. Calloway's internal monologue churns with the thought that he's confronting a dangerous criminal, a misinterpretation that transforms caution into a lethal possibility. His trigger finger twitches, a silent portent that this fraught moment could veer into irrevocable tragedy. Then, as if orchestrated by an unseen hand, another cruiser screeches onto the scene, its sirens and lights intensifying the surreal tableau. The second officer emerges with an urgency that betrays no hesitation. Lieutenant Vanessa Grayson, whose years on the force have sharpened her instincts to a fine edge, surveys the unfolding scene with mounting dread. Under the harsh glare of the gas station lights, she sees a figure whose build, stance, and resolute expression can only belong to General Obadiah Kane. Her heart lurches in recognition. This is no ordinary civilian, but a man whose reputation and sacrifice command respect, even as prejudice seeks to deny him that honor. Calloway, still locked in his defensive posture, insists in a brittle tone, "I need to detain him." But Grayson's voice, firm yet laced with measured authority, cuts through the tension. "Calloway, lower your weapon." The command lands like a shockwave, jolting Calloway into a moment of stark clarity. For an instant, his face betrays the dawning realization of a grievous error, a mistake that, once made, cannot be undone. As his grip on the gun slackens, the balance of the encounter teeters on the brink of resolution. In that fragile pause, the air seems to quiver with the collective weight of consequences yet to unfold. All at once, a bystander's smartphone lens captures the entire encounter, a grainy red dot here, a whispered "Oh my God, are you seeing this?" there. The recording becomes a spark in a tinderbox, and soon the incident transforms into a documented spectacle. Within hours, the footage surges across social media, its impact amplified by every re-upload and share. Headlines blare with unvarnished truths: a police officer pulls a gun on a four-star general, a rookie cop detains a revered war hero. The nation is set ablaze with outrage as television screens, tablets, and phones become vessels for a story that cannot be ignored. Veterans, activists, and ordinary citizens alike rally behind the honor of General Kane. A former Marine, his voice raw with emotion during a live broadcast, declares, "This wasn't just a mistake, it's a recurring tragedy." Politicians weigh their words carefully, some call for stringent accountability, while others attempt to chalk the incident up to a mere misunderstanding. Yet the public's response is unyielding, a tidal wave of indignation that swells into hashtags like #GeneralKane, #JusticeForKane, and #PoliceReformNow. Online platforms buzz with heated debates, each post a cry against a system that too often mistakes a hero for a threat. Back at the Bakersfield precinct, the repercussions mount with relentless speed. Within 24 hours, Officer Calloway is placed on administrative leave. The mayor issues a terse statement underscoring the seriousness of the incident, while the police chief, visibly uncomfortable, delivers robotic assurances of a full investigation. But such statements feel hollow to a public that demands not just acknowledgement, but real change. While Calloway retreats into the labyrinth of bureaucracy, General Kane steps into the glaring spotlight of media scrutiny, determined to speak not only for himself but for all those caught in the crosshairs of systemic bias. In a stark television studio, beneath blinding studio lights that strip away all artifice, General Kane sits opposite a seasoned news anchor. His posture is straight, his eyes unflinching, a portrait of a man who has weathered the storms of war and prejudice alike. The anchor leans forward, his tone respectful yet insistent. "General Kane, the footage of your encounter has been seen by millions. Can you walk us through what was running through your mind at that critical moment?" There is a weighted pause as Kane gathers his thoughts. "I realized in that moment how narrowly I escaped becoming just another statistic, a name lost in a ledger of tragic errors," he begins, his voice imbued with the calm authority of a battlefield commander. "That officer didn't truly see me, he saw a narrative he had already written, a story of suspicion that I was never meant to play a part in." His words, stripped of theatrics yet laden with somber truth, echo the countless times such misjudgments have irrevocably altered lives. He continues slowly, each word deliberate. "I survived because I've been trained to remain calm under extreme pressure, but must our very survival depend on this stoic discipline?" His question hangs in the air, resonating far beyond the studio walls. Almost immediately, his statement ignites an avalanche online. Snippets of his measured confession are shared, captioned with fervent questions and demands for reform. "I stayed calm so I could live, but should it always be this way?" His measured tone, devoid of anger yet brimming with raw honesty, challenges the narrative that reduced him to a mere target. Veterans, community activists, and leaders converge around his words, their rallying cries transforming a personal ordeal into a clarion call for systemic change. As the interview draws to a close, the conversation shifts to the broader implications of the incident. The anchor, tilting his head in quiet inquiry, asks, "General Kane, what do you hope will come of this?" Kane fixes his gaze directly into the camera, addressing millions of viewers with unyielding conviction. "We pledge to protect and serve, but that promise must be universal. If a man can devote his life to defending his country only to return home and be mistaken for a threat, then we're facing a crisis far greater than a single misjudgment." His words settle over the studio like a heavy fog, a sober reminder that the story unfolding here is not isolated, but emblematic of countless moments lost in the margins of media coverage, moments where lives slip through the cracks of indifference. In the final moments of this unfolding drama, the gas station parking lot, once a mundane waypoint on a quiet highway, has become the crucible in which the true cost of prejudice is laid bare. Every sharp intake of breath, every misinterpreted gesture, has been captured and broadcast, transforming personal tragedy into a national reckoning. As the screen slowly dims to black, one unassailable truth remains: if we allow a hero, a man whose very life has been dedicated to safeguarding our freedom, to be reduced to a target by the narrow confines of bias, then the promise of justice and equality is under siege. And as the echoes of his words linger, the pressing question remains: what are we willing to do when the next chapter demands a different ending?